So if you think about Italy, it goes from the Alps in the north down to Sicily in the middle of the Mediterranean. So food's really, really different. And then because it wasn't just one country, people sort of stayed put in their regions. So their food traditions have really, just persisted over generations and generations, and very, very locally.
Do they cross over any or much at all?
Well, a little bit. They cross over a little bit. And we'll talk actually about some of the ingredients when we start talking about the various regions that might be common in more than one region. But they tend to be really super specific. And even within regions, they have little, rivalries like between Florence and Pisa, for example.
What's their rivalry?
They hate each other.
Just because?
Just because. No, because they fought back in the 1500s and they're still mad, because again, that was yesterday. So
can't get over it.
So speak about a little bit more about these identities. I know in Sicily, for example, that those people who reside there refer to themselves as Sicilians, and then Italians later, right?
Well, okay, so yeah, they definitely think of themselves as sort of a Sicilian or a Tuscan, but again, as I said, you might just be Florentine or Pisan. But what brings everybody together are things like the World Cup, for example. Right. So if Italy's in the World Cup, well, then they're Italian. But they weren't in the World Cup this year, so there wasn't, they could stick with their little municipality as far as that goes. But I mean, things really change. Even just the bread changes as you move about, even just with, if you move about the country, but even through one region, you'll run into different. Just a staple like that, no Italian can go to the table without bread, and it changes from town to town. It's amazing. So that's why it's so fun to travel around and get off the beaten path and go to some of these little towns and just discover stuff that who knew it existed.
And speaking of discovering stuff, each of us are friends of yours. We're often together your friends, but we have separately been your friends. You and I have traveled and eaten together, you and Joe and you and Carol and stuff. I thought it might be fun to go around the table and talk about some of our favorites. For example, you and I traveled to Puglia once upon a time, and one of my favorite meals, it was I guess it was a seaside little restaurant.
It's kind of a shack.
Shack on the beach. That's a good description of it. But they had this tuna that was pickled? Not pickled.
No, it was like canned tuna, but
it was in giant jars.
Giant jar, and it was it had been fished somewhere nearby, and those guys put it up in the jar themselves. It wasn't the can off the shelf at the store. They had done it. It was good. And the technical name for that type of seaside shack in Puglia is Chiringuito. We were at a Chiringuito. And it was hot, as I recall.
It was very hot.
But it was good.
But the tuna was outstanding. It was local, it was fresh, but it was packed in this oil and other, as I recall, other herbs and spices.
Right. There's some bay in there. Yeah, it was good.
And we ate and ate and ate. And then we decided to take some with us, and then we later regretted we didn't take more with us because we were in a car, and we could have easily driven it back to your place in Tuscany and had tuna for.
I have thought about that often. Like, why didn't we buy more of that tuna? That's a lesson for you. Buy the tuna.
That's right. If you're thinking about it, go ahead and buy it.
That's right.
And another meal that I recall with great fondness took place in Mississippi, on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. You were visiting me in Bay St. Louis in post-Katrina, and my house had been flooded, and I didn't have a kitchen, and we were just sort of winging it. And I had a fire pit, and so we built ourselves a wonderful big roaring fire, went down to the boats, to the docks, and bought a bunch of fresh shrimp and brought them back and grilled them while we drank these faux gin and tonics, which is now quite the rage.
Exactly. We were ahead of our
time.
That
was mocktail, pre-mocktail.
Everybody did.
You and I were mocktailing it long before it became a thing. But those shrimp and we had a lime or two. We didn't have a lot of ingredients.
We had lime and tonic and shrimp. And a fire, and it was great.
That's all you need.
Maybe a little salt and pepper. I don't recall.
I don't either, but it was good.
But those are a couple of my favorites that you and I had together. Joe, you got a favorite or two?
Well, the first one was our first trip, and we started in Venice, and then we ended up in Florence, and we went to Elaine's place. And if you've never been, it's a wonderful location, but it's not real large, and she has a Viking range that's like 7 feet long. I don't know how they got it in there, but they did one heck of a job. But it was amazing. But we had homemade pasta, which I was in charge of, and I'm trying to do it, and Elaine's
bragging?
No, I'm not. No, you don't know about bragging. I'm saying, she said, Joe, you need. I said, I need to learn how to knead. That's what I learned how to do with the egg and the egg. Anyway, so with the homemade pasta, but she made a duck ragu. It was phenomenal. And then we had artichokes. And then another time when we were in Bologna, she came, and she and I went grocery shopping while Mary Pryor rested, and we came back with Parmesan cheese, 3 different aged Parmesan cheese.
The vertical, Parmesan vertical.
Right. Thank you. Vertical. And then we did had some salumi, and then we had a great meal. And it was like one big family, all 3 of us. So it was great.
That's fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Carol?
I win.
You win.
I do. It was actually one of the greatest meals of my lifetime was when Elaine was...
the Last Supper was.
It was kind of the Last Supper for one, but it was in the home of Elaine's friend Piero, who lived...
Oh, Piero.
This was when you were living in...
Loro Cefena.
And I'm going to let you tell about Piero, but the meal was cooked. He was a very simple man in a simple home and with a wood-burning fire that he cooked our meal on.
Exactly.
And he bottled his own olive oil. He made all his own sauces, and in his cellar would be what he had put up for the year. He had a big barrel keg that he had his wine wine in. But that day he went out in the forest and he gathered mushrooms. It was during, I guess porcini. It was porcini. It was porcini season, and he made a meal for about 8 of us in this tiny little cottage, and it was just phenomenal. The mushrooms were phenomenal.
It was his family house from sort of the 1700s or something, and real rustic with a giant fireplace that if it's cold, you just get up in there. Oh. No running water. His hot water. He had running water and hot water. The hot water was a cauldron over the fire, and he made us pork ribs, porcini mushrooms. It was just great. Yeah, I think we also maybe toasted some chestnuts. I don't remember if we had chestnuts or not. But he was very excited to have it was a group of ladies, and he had decided ahead of time they were all widows because that meant he had a chance with all of them. And he always talked about the widows.
His P's and Q's.
He was certainly on his P's and Q's, and he had a very untimely death as far as you're concerned, because he was like your close friend. He
was my dear friend. But I have to say he literally went out the way you want to go out, which was. He picked a bunch of tomatoes that he was going to put up for sauce. Went down to buy, he would put them up, he would drink a beer every night, mostly so he could have the glasses later, the bottles, so that he could put his tomato sauce in it. So he had gone down into the village to buy the Corona tops, that he was going to chick and get and then he had a cup of coffee and flirted with the little Bartista girl who he liked. And then got in his car and never even got the car turned on.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
So he just went just like that. So I'm kind of, if you have to go.
Yes, and you named one of your olive oils for him.
I did. So my Tuscan oil is called Piero in his honor. Exactly.
Well, I sent several pictures of him to Java's phone, and I'm hoping before the end of the show we can pull it up and show a picture of Piero.
Great. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And Elaine, I got to visit you there in that space. And met Piero, but Piero was not too fond of me. He was a little jealous.
He could wait for you to leave.
He sort of looked at me in scorn because I was a male and hanging out with Elaine.
Can we point out that I was 45 and he was 85?
There you go.
And he did
never
ask you to
give up.
marry him several times.
He did.
And he had never been married before.
He had never been married, and he asked me to marry him, and I was honored. But I said, I think I just would like to be your friend. And he was offended in the beginning, but he got over it. We were good friends.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we like to point out here on this show from week to week is days that we honor, and August the 15th is Lemon Meringue Pie Day. And I bring that up because I love lemon meringue pie, and around our house, it has been a legendary dish to make. And we got our original recipe out of the old Fannin Mart cookbook. Fannin Mart is still a restaurant that operates out in, I think it's Flowood.
Right.
But they used to be out in Fannin in the little town, and they published a cookbook, and they had this fantastic recipe for old school lemon meringue pie. And I just love it, and I've had it for my birthday many, many times. And my granddaughter was visiting Vivian, her grandmother, in Oxford a month or so ago, and ended up, Ren, the granddaughter, painted a painting of Vivian's lemon meringue pie and entered it into a contest at APAC at school and won first place.
Oh,
for her.
congratulations.
Well, there you go, Mel.
The lemon meringue
I
pie.
was wondering how you were going to work that.
There you
Work
go.
that in there. It was really good.
That was smooth.
I
baby.
remember, though, having to bring you lemon meringue pies
Yes.
from Greenwood when Mockingbird Bakery across from the
Martha
Olympian
Foos.
was going. I could not come back
Home
to
without
Jackson
one.
without a lemon meringue pie.
Carol, you're on your way. You're coming back. Did
Yes.
you get the pie?
They don't have any today. Well, wait.
Wait till tomorrow.
Don't come until
come
you
back
have the
tomorrow.
pie. She made a wonderful lemon meringue
Yep,
pie
yep.
at Martha Foos. Just as a reminder, Chef Regina Charbonneau will be coming on the show to talk to us about the reopening of King's Tavern in Natchez and much more. So we look forward to having Regina on. She also does cooking demonstrations and classes, and she's got a recently published cookbook we want to talk about. Again, mark your calendars for August 24 for Regina Charbonneau coming on the show. I want to remind you also that Deep South Dining's podcast is brought to you by Mississippi Red Pepper Sauce. You can discover more at msredpeppersauce.com. And with that, we'll take a short break, and we'll be back with Joe Sherman and Elaine Trigiani to talk more about Italy.
Support the programs you love and wear your Mississippi pride on your sleeve, literally, with the new merch on the MPB shop. Check out our latest drop with apparel from your favorite TV and radio shows, both current and throwback, featuring fan favorites like Next Stop Mississippi, Southern Dish, Ampton Wired, and more. Every purchase you make supports MPB. Visit mpbonline.org and click the shop button at the top to show your support today.
School choice, rural hospitals, voter access. The 2026 Mississippi Legislature will impact you and your family for years to come. MPB brings you At Issue, a weekly analysis of the legislative session and the issues affecting you with perspectives from both sides of the aisle. Brandon Jones and new At Issue analyst Rebecca Staples join me, Wilson Stribling, every Monday at 5 p.m. only on MPB Think Radio and wherever you get your podcasts. MPB, your stories, our mission.
Hatred destroys the one who hates. The others that you hated, go on about their business. Who care of us?
So the legacy of Medgar Evers is an understanding of our own humanity and of our own responsibility of seeing that in other people.
He is written out of history. He's just not included as Malcolm and Martin. To me, it's the 3 M's, and Medgar is right up there at the lead.
Everlasting, Life and Legacy of Medgar Evers. Watch now on MPB Passport. Visit mpbonline.org for more.
Welcome back to Deep South Dining on MPB Think Radio. Carol, I believe that was one of your selections.
It
there.
was Funiculi.
Funicula.
Yeah.
Very good. Nice.
I mean, joyful, Malcolm.
Very joyful.
Very joyful.
Joyful.
Now, we went out of the first segment, Elaine, with a tune you brought to the table. You want to tell our listeners what that was?
That is a piece of folk music from the tradition called the pizzica, which is typical to Puglia, which is one of the regions that we're going to talk about in a minute. I have a trip planned there for next year. And like the Southern Italian folk music, there's a lot of stringed instruments based on ancient instruments and lots of tambourine, and they dance a lot. That's the pizzicas.
Our kind of people.
I like that.
Exactly.
That's right. Well, Carol, speaking of the regions, one of the things we wanted to get to today is that Elaine is organizing cultural and culinary trips, which she does for a living, to 3 new regions to her, I guess. Is that right? Or have you been before?
I've been to Puglia before, and then Emilia, Romagna, and Piedmont's actually a combo trip, and that's a new itinerary for me. But
I saw that your 2026 itinerary, you're all full up, as
Full
we say
up.
in Mississippi. So
Full
this is all 2027.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Look
Can't
ahead.
wedge another tourist in with a shoehorn, as we say.
People are saying, "What's a shoehorn?"
No room at the inn.
Yep.
That's right.
So let's talk about Emilia Romagna.
There we go. There's a photo.
Emilia is a really particular area, and it's referred to as the Food Valley, which they say that in English, and it kind of bugs me. But, it kind of is. But the reason it's Food Valley is because it's the Po River Valley. So it's their delta. So lots, very rich soil, lots, tons of cultivations are coming out of there, anything from rice to, peaches and cherries, that kind of thing. But they've also got this very particular climate because it's the Po River Valley and then the Apennines, which kind of separate Tuscany from Emilia-Romagna, where Parma, Modena, Bologna, where all those cities are. And those cities are linked by this ancient Roman road, and you're just walking you're in the middle of this Roman footprint. And that went all the way from Piacenza to Parma and then out on the east coast at the Po River, the actual delta of the Po as it goes into the Adriatic Sea. And then it's bordered on the south there with the Apennines, so you've got some altitude. And they also get some cool breeze coming in from the Cinque Terre from the west. So because of that, they've got the perfect climate for Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, for prosciutto, and balsamic vinegar, which has a very particular production process that involves they put it in the attic. They have vinegar attics, actually. And so, it gets cold during the evening. It warms up during the day. So their climate actually plays a role in how that vinegar ferments and turns into the famous balsamic vinegar.
And I think, very, very few have tasted, around here, the real actual balsamic vinegar, because without regulations where we are, you can put like 1 drop in a vinegar and they can call it.
Well, what they do, actually, it's worse than that. There's not a drop. It's regular, usually the stuff, just random stuff you find in a big bottle and it's kind of liquidy. That's usually vinegar with either some kind of sugar syrup in it or just brown sugar.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's allowed.
I'm sorry to burst the bubble. But,
I know. So
yeah.
in a grocery store, when you see, low price, $12.95.
Right.
That's not.
Right. It may be kind of balsamic style, but what makes balsamic vinegar is that it is fermented over years using a process called a solera, which they also use for sherry and for marsala. And what they do is they have a series of barrels, and they, from bigger to smaller, basically. And your grape must, they make grape juice when they're making wine. They take some of the juice away, they boil it down, kind of make a syrup out of it, and they pour it into this big barrel where there's some starter in there, and so it ferments. And then the next year, they move some of that to a smaller barrel and fill up the big barrel, and they just keep going. So eventually all your barrels are full. It's fermented, and it's also oxidated, and so it evaporates. And so by the time you get to the end, you've got this tiny little barrel, and that's where they actually kind of draw out the balsamic. And at that point, it is just syrupy and really complex flavors. Each one of those barrels is made from a different kind of wood. So you'll have juniper, cherry, oak, just all different kinds of woods. That also kind of contributes. So that's why it's so kind of special. And it's super labor intensive. So it does have a high price tag, but
that's where we were, right there.
That is where we were.
These are your photos, Joe?
Uh-huh.
In a balsamic vinegar attic. And then when you're driving, let's see the low window there behind the barrels. when you're driving around that region, you'll see houses have, an attic story with these just small windows that, you can tell a person couldn't even see out of, but that's their vinegar attic, but the windows are open. So, and it's temperature controlled just by the climate outside.
Wow.
Many years ago, we really didn't know much about balsamic vinegar on this side of the Atlantic. In fact, Dean and DeLuca in New York were the ones that really introduced it to the public here. And, I owned the Everyday Gourmet for many years, and we had the famous Italian chef and cooking teacher Giuliano Bugiali here. And I remember I was typing his recipes on my old Selectric typewriter.
Oh my gosh!
Before the class,
Hemingway's typist.
Yes. And one of his recipes was strawberries with balsamic vinegar.
They
and
do
I
that.
thought, oh my God, that sounds so wretched. To have vinegar on strawberries, it is one of the most delicious things I've
It's
ever eaten.
delicious. You know what they also do with it? They'll just. I've actually been served after dinner at someone's house. They also tend to, when women get married, it's almost like a dowry type of a thing. They bring to the couple's new home their battery of barrels, which maybe their grandmother started for them when they were born or something like that, right? Like when you're born, your family will start your balsamic battery for you. So it's the wife that brings that into the couple. But I have been served in a home with lavish, just super rich meal, and after dinner, they had these little miniature stemware, and it had balsamic in it, and you just sip it, 2 little sips, and it's kind of a digestive, right? Because it's good for your gut health, getting a little microbiome action going on down there.
But you just use on the strawberries, it's just a tiny
drop.
Yeah, just tiny.
Right.
So, Elaine, what was the body of water in the photograph in this region that we were looking at?
I actually didn't see the photo, but it must have been the river, the Po River.
The Po River.
Right.
It was a river.
It flows right through there. Again, it's just a swath of flat land going all the way out. Kind of exits into the Adriatic just south of Venice. Oh, no, this is the Piedmont part.
Oh, we're in the wrong area there.
So the reason that it's together.
I see you have them together.
We go to both of those regions together. So that's actually a glacial lake, Lake Orta. And a lot of people have heard of Lake Como or Lake Maggiore. This is the lesser-known Lake Orta, right next to Lake Maggiore. All the beauty, none of the people. That's where we go.
Got it. Okay, I want to take us back to Emilia Romagna because I want you to talk to us about Parmesan cheese. Now, some of us grew up in the generation where you shook it out of that green box.
Don't make me think about it.
Wonder what that was.
There's
Sawdust.
It was cheese product.
Sawdust.
But there's a lot of difference between Parmesan and Parmigiano Reggiano. So kind of paint the picture for us.
Parmigiano Reggiano is this historic cheese that's made in this region, Parma and Reggio. So Parmigiano means from Parma and Reggiano means from Reggio. These are these 2 towns right along the Roman road. And so Parmigiano Reggiano has to be made in that area from certain breeds of cows. And the production process is outlined, and it's basically a completely natural product. The forms of cheese are gigantic. Y'all probably seen them. It takes something like 500 liters of milk to make one form of cheese. Crazy. They tend to work in co-ops, actually. There are some farms that just do their own thing, but they tend to work in co-ops, and they're very well organized. That's another sort of trait of this region of Emilia-Romagna. So they work really well together. They all participate, and they're also good at marketing their product. So they've managed to keep it kind of pure. And if there is no more Parmesan in the green can, I don't think.
Let's hope not.
Although, or if there is, I believe they have made sure that the labeling is super clear. Nobody can pretend to make Parmigiano Reggiano if it's not Parmigiano Reggiano because they stay on top of it. But what's so good about it?
They being the
consortium.
The consortium.
The consortium. They just all tend to cooperate really well together, which is unusual for Italy and unheard of in Tuscany, for example. But this one consortium works very well together.
And it's stored like in bank vaults. And I mean, it's.
Do you know that you can actually take out a loan based on your cheese storage, what you have in storage? So farmers are not rolling in dough, right? So they may need to take out a loan to sort of produce for the next year. These are folks who have cows. They grow all their own forage. They're not, opening up, the bag of whatever. I mean, they're actually growing all the food that they are feeding to their cows. So
the wheels are 80 pounds. I just looked it up.
Okay.
I couldn't quite remember
They're
from 80
gigantic.
to 88.
Right.
And my personal experience was owning the Everyday Gourmet, and that was before you could get it in this region. And we would get quarter wheels, and we would cut it ourselves.
And they're
of
still
course,
giant.
Yeah, I mean, we had a big rubber mallet and a big knife to do it. And we
right.
all fought over who was going to get to do it, so
Oh,
you
good.
could pick up
the crumbs.
the
Exactly.
crumbs.
Well, and those forms are huge. They're super heavy, and they're aged minimum 12 months. Actually, I think it's maybe what you find on the market is usually 24. Sometimes they'll release a 12-month, but you find 24, 36 months, 60 months, 72 months, and they get turned all the time. They don't just sit there for 72 months. There are people up there, picking them up, rubbing on them, turning them over to make sure that they age properly, and then checking on them to make sure that everything's going really well, which they do they have this little kind of ball peen hammer, and they stand the wheel up, on kind of the round edge and just hammer around, starting on the outside, going to the inside, and they can hear an inconsistency. So there's a gap in there somewhere. For example, they know they've got a problem. Interesting.
Really, the best wedding present that John and I got a few years ago was actually from your dad. He sent us Parmesan cheese from Italy. And Joe, you and Mary Pryor and I sent the same to Tim Pierce
That's
when
right.
we were at his house one time. But he sent 36-month, 48-month, and 60-month, a big chunk
It's fun to
of each. And I can never go back.
I brought some back on the airplane. Mary Pryor thought we were going to stop. No,
You're okay. Cheese is fine. Aged cheese is fine. I was at someone's house last night. A friend had a birthday party for her husband, and they had actually been on this trip, this Emilia Romagna trip, with me this year, and they did the same thing. They on their kind of buffet, they also had the Parmesan vertical with a little bit of the balsamic on it. It's great.
That's neat.
Where would you suggest that people within the reach of our show get their balsamic?
Balsamic. Good question, Carol. Can you answer that better than I can?
I would say a specialty store. I think Whole Foods has some.
Do
I
they?
think Fresh Market has some.
And
How do you know it's authentic?
All right, you want to look for.
That's what I was getting at.
Right. Balsamico tradizionale di Reggio or di Modena. You might check, actually, also maybe order some online if you can't come up with it. But, I mean, it's fairly hard to come by, and the bottles are tiny, and they usually, on site, I pay sort of 80 or 90 euro. So, if you find the $10 bottle, then that's not what you're looking for.
Interesting. There's no particular label, no particular marking.
There's a consortium at Spilimberto, which is where we went, and I think that's from Reggio. But it needs to have the markings of the traditional production, and it will probably have a DOP mark on it, which is this little orange circle with like yellow writing in it, DOP, which is it's the denomination of origin protected status. So that's your key to getting the real deal.
This was on the tomatoes.
Also,
And that was, and then on
Yeah,
the
the
tomatoes,
little-
the
you can get it on
Marzano,
cheeses and
the cheese.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
that's
a
what I thought.
DOC
Is
for
there a-
wine, DOP for food.
A difference between balsamic and balsamic vinegar. I mean,
We just say balsamic, but no, it's the same thing.
Okay.
But what you don't want is if it says balsamic like condiment, then that's not not the
Okay.
real deal. So that's kind of a syrupy mix with some brown sugar that might approximate.
okay, so we're going to look for DOP on the
DOP.
bottles.
Got
So
it.
on this tour, people would visit farmers, cheesemakers,
Yes, vinegar attic. Yeah.
the whole thing.
The whole thing. Yeah, we go visit, we watch the cheese being made, we go into the vinegar attic and look at all the barrels, kind of smell the barrels, do a tasting of, again, various years of balsamic. Balsamic, again, once they start that process, the Asolera process going, it might be 1912. These things go on for generations. So you get this, super old vinegars going on. But so it's fun. Yeah, we go into the vinegar attic, the production facilities, also for prosciutto, talk to the people who are making it, have taste right there.
So prosciutto di Parma, is that a DOP? Is that a
Also.
consortium?
That is also DOP. So prosciutto is made throughout Italy, and you may be familiar with Tuscan prosciutto, for example, which tends to be kind of dried out more. And the texture is a little bit more kind of dense, and it tends to be salty. The version from Parma is a little bit more soft and sweeter, just because of the aging times and again their climate up there. And then there's an area just to the north and east of Parma. There are 6 or 8 municipalities where they make the super special prosciutto, which is called culatello. Okay. And this is it's a prosciutto, which is basically the ham hock, but they've deboned it and taken just sort of the best cut for this, and they make a prosciutto out of that. It's called culatello, and they serve it super super thin with a little butter on the side. They eat it with butter. Man. So that's another kind of defining factor of the cuisine up there. They're on that side of the north of the Apennines from the rest of southern Italy, and they tend to cook more with butter, milk, and cream than they do down in the south. It's more olive oil based. So that's another kind of
because they have cows.
Because they have cows, and they also they
have grass for cows.
I buy butter that is from the Parmesan cheese folks. Parmesan cows. They also make butter.
Wow. I bet that's some good butter.
But they do not make buttermilk, unfortunately.
All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back with Elaine Trigiani, our guest today, who's visiting home, though she grew up here in Mississippi, in Jackson. She went away 25 or so years ago to Italy and has yet to come back except to visit and to bring good tidings about all of the foods and beverages that exist over there, and we're grateful that you're here. And we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation.
We're going to talk about Puglia.
Puglia's next. All right. Right back with more Deep South Dining.
Together through the years, together in the future. MPB, your stories, our mission.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bobby Rush. As a blues man, I love Mississippi Public Broadcasting. If you support Mississippi music and their local programming, donate now, right now, and become a member today, not tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Doesn't matter how big or small, but we prefer big. Thank you very much.
Mississippi is a place of deep roots where every story matters and every voice can be heard. At MPB, we stand with our local communities, bringing you the voices of those who shape our state through local programming that reflects our culture across small towns to big cities, from the Delta to the coast. We tell the stories that define us, from the music that carries our voices to the leaders who inspire change. MPB brings you the heart of Mississippi, celebrating Mississippi one story at a time. MPB, your stories, our mission.
That's Joe Sherman's selection there, Volare.
The great songs, my aunt's favorite.
I didn't tell y'all this, but the mics were on when y'all were harmonizing.
Was
the,
oh,
music.
no.
That's why it was so good. That's what made it so much better.
All right, welcome back to Deep South Dining. Again, I want to remind you that our podcast is brought to you by Mississippi Red Pepper Sauce. You can discover more at msredpeppersauce.com. They also make a mean hot honey, do they not, Carol?
It's so good.
And we're going to send Elaine back to Italy with some Mississippi red pepper sauce and some
yes,
hot
you
honey.
know, products go both ways.
Right. Exactly. Can't wait to share it with the neighbors.
All right. Carol, where are we on our trip here?
Malcolm,
We're
Joe,
touring
Elaine.
about.
We've got to go to Puglia.
Puglia.
All right.
Excellent.
I've actually been. Have y'all been?
No.
No.
Carol? Oh.
You're so,
There you
you're
go.
so
As you
cool.
said, I win.
Okay.
You win.
Let's
I lost.
just say Puglia is Italy's bread basket and olive garden, and we don't mean that olive garden.
Good.
We mean
Good.
garden of olives.
Right, Puglia is a gorgeous region, and one reason it's the bread basket and the olive garden is because of the geography. And down there, it's actually quite flat, so it's easily farmed. We just talked about the Po River Valley, but the Po River Valley, if you look at a map of Italy, is just like wedged in between mountains, basically. And then if you think about Tuscany, it's all these rolling hills, making things like olive cultivation difficult. Ask me all about it. So Puglia is interesting because no kind of green rolling hills. It's quite flat. There's no rivers. They have these underground water courses that have dug grottos out over time. So there are grottos which have over the centuries even been used as places of refuge, in times of strife or war. And then the coastlines are just gorgeous, kind of craggy coastlines. Remember, Malcolm, how you can't really walk on them unless you know what you're doing?
You have to wear your shoes.
You have to wear special shoes.
Right.
No flip-flops.
No flip-flops.
No.
But it's gorgeous. It really is.
It is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
That is true.
And then their food.
Did I mention the tuna? Oh, no.
What tuna?
Besides the tuna, they have excellent seafood. They have, if you think about it, Puglia is the toe of the boot. So it's this very narrow peninsula. You can go coast to coast in under 45 minutes. So all kinds of great seafood. Over in Taranto, they actually farm for mussels in these two huge bays that they have, and then all sorts of just wild-caught fish and seafood. And then they have, their soil is just kind of red, that real iron-rich soil. And the vegetables are super flavorful, and they just have this wide variety of vegetables that they just put to good use. So their food is still kind of, simple as you might think of as Tuscan food, but it's way less understated. It is just so flavorful, just amazing. So that's really fun. And then very interesting breads, really interesting breads, and just, covered with, salt and oil and just finger licking good. Just really good stuff to eat. Yeah.
Okay.
Great stuff to eat. So
Now
we
you're
have
making
fun.
me hungry.
I had a question about bread. Okay. I read that there's a bread, it's, I think, Pane di Altamura.
Altamura. Mm-hmm.
It is one of Europe's oldest protected breads. What does it mean to be a protected bread?
Well, we're going back to that DOP discussion, which we just talked about. So it's been recognized as a particular production. And I don't remember the year that it was given this status, but the bread there is very well known. So part of it is, the wheat is grown right there. It's Durham wheat, which is, super flavorful, almost kind of spicy. And it's grown there in that great rich soil. The water quality plays a part. And then they use a little bit of sea salt as well. So if any of y'all have ever traveled to Tuscany, you might remember that there's no salt in the bread. Here they do put salt in the bread. And the other particular thing about this particular form from Altamura is it's kneaded. They let it rise till it's super fluffy, and then they just kind of flop it over on itself. And it's just this bizarre form, but they bake it in a wood-burning oven. So it's got a real thick, crusty crust and a super soft crumb. And it's great, and it lasts for days. And the idea is you can put it on your pack animal and go out and take care of the sheep or something, and your bread's still good 3 days later. But it is excellent. It's worth going out of your way for.
Okay, and also, when we were doing our reading, that Puglia has 40 to 50% of the olive oil of Italy.
Yes.
In a good year. I mean,
it's a lot.
It's a lot of oil.
Again, so they have the varieties of trees that are planted down there tend to produce a lot. They also get gigantic, so they're big. The Tuscan trees are sort of woodsy, small trees that don't get very tall. These things are gigantic, so they just have a lot of production, and it's all flat. So it's just, it's sort of easy to cultivate. They make a large amount of excellent olive oil, anything from There's two varieties that are among the healthiest of all of the Italian oils, have the highest polyphenol contents, Coratina and Cima di Mola, which you can find producers like Stallone or Intini, which you can find online if you look. And then they also have delicate varieties like Perenzana, and there's one called Bella di Cerignola, which are these big, huge olives, which you actually also find cured, and you can just, eat them. Mm-hmm. But they make olive oil from them, and they actually it smells and tastes like fresh peas. The sweetest, and it's so good on like grilled squid with a little bit of that oil on there and some capers. Beautiful.
Yeah, Malcolm is wanting some grilled tuna or grilled squid or something from the area. Mm-hmm. Okay, what about burrata?
All right, so burrata.
That's from Puglia, right?
Burrata is from Puglia and only from Puglia. And it is the cousin of mozzarella. So mozzarella is made from buffalo milk, and it is a pasta filata, which means they make some cheese one evening. And they usually use a morning milking and an afternoon milking, make some cheese, let it sit overnight. In the morning, they slice the cheese up into slices, pour hot water over it, and then start stretching it like taffy. And then they make a form out of it, a little ball, and that's mozzarella.
That's fun to watch.
And it is fun to watch. But burrata is cow's milk, so it's slightly different because of just the milk they use. And it is a pasta filata, but when they start doing the taffy stretching, they just kind of make a shell, put it in the palm of their hand, and then fill the shell up with cream and little bits of cheese, and then they, seal it up. So you've got this it is, I know.
I had that last night.
It's delicious. It's delicious. Yeah.
Well, we got to move on to the Piedmont now, Carol. How do you feel about that?
Malcolm, I feel good about it. I'm feeling good about this whole situation.
Me too.
Have y'all?
I'm ready to go.
I want to remind our listeners that you can join Elaine on any of these trips that we're talking about, to any of these places, to eat any of this food, to drink this wine, to meet these people. This is what she does. She's also an art historian. So mixed in with all of this culinary, beautiful travel, there's the art component where you take people to museums and identify artistic components of
we do go to some
culture.
museums. I've been trying of late to also just see things in the wild. So when we're in Puglia, we go see the stacked stones.
Right.
Little mini Stonehenge situation going on down there in Puglia. Very interesting, prehistoric stacked stones. And works of art in places, that they were created for. So, you can go to a museum and see excellent works of art, but you can also, oftentimes, if you know where to go, and I do, you can, find a little church in the, out in the boondocks somewhere, and there's a masterpiece of, Italian Renaissance art or similar. Yeah. So we do see art all along the way.
All right, let's go on to the Piedmont for our last section.
So you've got a completely different vibe in the Piedmont.
Totally. It really is. It's absolutely totally different. So they're the foundation of most of these towns up there. So in Piedmont, we go to the Barolo area. I think a lot of y'all have probably heard of
the wine.
Yeah, for the wines. That's kind of the wine-centric part of this trip. We go to Barolo, and so these little villages are there. We stay in La Morra. We go to Alba. We also go to Turin on the way up to the lakes. And these are all towns that were actually founded by the Romans. So that sounds kind of familiar, like the rest of Italy. But from the medieval period, from the year 1000, they were under the control of the House of Savoy, which is France, right? So they've got lots of French influence, also with the cuisine, and it's just quite a different feel. Flavors are different. The recipes are a little bit more elaborate, and they just kind of appreciate the good life too. So food is great, wine is great, and it's just beautiful.
Hazelnuts, white truffles.
Exactly. Hazelnuts, white truffles. There's kind of a chocolate scene going on up there. The white truffles are spectacular, so it's fun to go in fall for that.
Dogs or pigs now?
Dogs. They use pigs in France. They use dogs in Italy, and they're trained to find the truffles but not eat the truffles.
Right, they're very smart dogs. This is the birthplace of the slow food movement, right?
Also, yes, and shout out to Carlo Petrini, who actually passed away last May, and we're all very thankful for his work. He started the slow food movement in the 80s, and it has now grown throughout Italy, but there are outposts also here in the U.S., I know.
Yes, I think the closest is New Orleans, but we've talked before about getting one started here.
I think y'all should.
We should.
So the idea is traditional recipes, obviously, but it's also kind of protecting ingredients. Like, for example, there's a type of bean that's grown in Tuscany near where I live, and it's kind of on the verge of extinction because, it's labor intensive and not remunerative, but they work to kind of bring attention to it so people know what it is, ask for it, and then buy it, and the farmers can keep it going. And their motto is buono, pulito e giusto, so good, clean, and fair. Meaning also, fair environment for the workers, also for the, environment of the earth, no pollution, so organic agriculture, treating workers fairly, and then, producing traditional recipes.
And it started as a protest to, I think they were building a McDonald's maybe
they
in
built
Milan.
a McDonald's. It was downtown Rome.
Downtown Rome, and so this,
I
instead
ate there.
of fast...
In 1986, I was a student. I got some fries, I admit it.
But slow food as opposed to fast food.
Exactly, so that's why it's called slow food. And it's, if you're familiar with it, then great, and go on their website and you can order really interesting books, many of which are translated into English. Just they might do a deep dive on one kind of cheese. They'll talk, they'll do a whole guide to cheeses in Italy, of which there's like 500. Or they have a great app for osterie, which are casual eat places. And you can download that, and it's localized on a map, so you can, if you're hungry, no matter where you are, you just open that up and you've got a guaranteed, recommendation from them. It's great.
Well, with the time we have left, tell our listeners how they can reach you, find you, connect to you, whether it's to buy your olive oil, to go on one of your trips, or to come to Italy and to experience what you have been talking about now for 45 minutes.
Yeah, join my mailing list. We're on Elaine@ElaineTrigiani.com, so you can find my website there. There's also, you can get on the mailing list so you get information about trips, and there's a link to the olive oil website, which is oliodelladonna.com, but there's a link on my main website, and you can learn about, you get announcements for olive oil orders, which are, I'm just announcing now, it's going to be pre-orders, y'all, while supplies last. So you got to get on the list.
Okay, Joe. He's our oil mule.
Joe has, first order, Joe got in early.
That's right.
And then follow me. It would be helpful on Instagram. I'm trying to be a little more active on Instagram, and I am not so good at that, but my colleague Lorenzo, who does trips with me, who is great fun, he's your friend in Italy. He's gonna he's put up, you'll see.
But he's your partner on these trips, right?
Yes, he is kind of my partner on these trips. He's my assistant. I like to call him my assistant.
He was at all the during COVID. He was doing
right when I do the online classes, which hopefully I'll do another one. I've got 3 ideas. If I ever have some time to put it together, we'll do another one. But y'all know Lorenzo from the online classes. Yeah, he's super fun. Again, he's your friend in Italy. So we have trips going next year, early April to Sicily, which we've talked about in here before, so we didn't go over it again. And then Emilia-Romagna and Piedmont from the 9th to the 18th of May. And we finish up on lovely Lake Orta to just sort of relax with the view. And then Puglia in early September, 8 to 14 September, we're going down to Puglia. So those are the trips. So follow us on Instagram, check it out on the website, get on the mailing list.
Well, if everybody out there listening in Radio Land, this was the appetizer. You need to get to the main course.
Exactly.
You need to get to the main course.
All right, that about does it for our time today. We are grateful that you have joined us. Deep South Dining is a production of Mississippi Public Broadcasting's Think Radio, and we are funded by generous contributions from listeners like yourself, and we thank you. Our show was produced by Liz Gill today for our very special guests, Elaine Trigiani and Joe Sherman. And with my co-host, Carol Palmer, we are grateful and we thank you for joining us. Please stay tuned now for At Issue is up next, and join us next Monday at 4 p.m. and every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for an encore edition of Deep South Dining. We are heard exclusively on MPB Think Radio, and we'll see you next Monday.